All right, Sean, we are live. I really appreciate you taking some time. This means a lot to me. Like I mentioned, I've been a fan of Pies. I saw it in theaters in '98 when it first came out in Manhattan,
What
some
did you
little
see it at the
theater.
Angelica? Do you think you saw it at the Angelica?
I probably saw it at the Angelica, I have to
That's
admit.
awesome, Mike. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
With Pies celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, looking back on the film, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about this movie? 25 years, I say pie, and what's the first thing that you think about? Your experience? What is it?
That's a great question and a really nice way to put it. And thanks for going back to that. It's been so fun doing this 25th anniversary thing and relaunching with A24. We got to show it on IMAX, and Darren and Maddie did a new 8K scan of the film, and it sounds amazing. And Clint Mansell's score sounds bonkers, and the film itself on the screen really feels very alive. And it's just really fun to see it again. But your question of what does my mind go first, I think it has to go to the community of people making the film, and the kind of ethic propelling us, and just how much I learned. That's just where you want to be, is with committed, skilled people who know more than you do as a young person. Working in a tight knit group, working long hours, putting everything you got into something, and just absorbing. You know, learning in the form of like lived experience day in and day out, and just being on the set and being with those people, and then following that experience through into post-production and into the festivals and the release, and just being in that circle, with these great folks who, are so talented. And, the feeling that I had then that they were really good has kind of been borne out by, everybody's career path. Yeah, it was just a great trip working with those folks and making a movie for $70,000 that, the world got to see. So gratifying.
Oh yeah, man. And like I said, the movie it still holds up. I just watched it the other day and I was blown away. Like the first time I just saw it for the first time the other day. And I was like, this movie is still amazing and it's visually stunning. And I'll get to your performance, and that's one of my other questions. Did you still think that we would be talking about this movie all these years later?
Do we think that during production?
Yeah,
I,
25 years now, and this movie is still something that I want to talk to you about. It's still like a hot topic.
well, it's just so lovely. And I mean, I think for us, one of the films when we were young that kind of gave us permission to dream and think like you can make a no budget thing with your friends in a very intentional way and make something of value, maybe, was like Stranger Than Paradise by Jim Jarmusch, which they had shot like some stuff on short ends that, they found at Cannes, and then they got a little bit more money, and they were just kind of like gripping and grinning through it with a sense of like, just this really strong sense of intention, like, let's make something good. Let's make something that comes from us. Let's make something that, that speaks to the things that we're interested in, that we care about. And let's make something that's like based on an ethic and a way of working that's meaningful to us. So like every time we added somebody new to that circle, we were really careful to make sure that the new person wasn't going to be somebody who's going to dilute, the tea and just kind of and piss on the party. It was going to be people who, and that's where, no budget, the principle of making your limitations into advantages, and making the limitations that you're facing into really advantages, things that are going to yield fruit creatively. That's a really good example of that, because when you're on the set and you're looking around at the people who are there and they're not getting paid, why are they there?
That's
They're
true.
there because they read the pitch and they meet the people and they're like, this seems fucking cool.
Right.
I'm going to spend 28 days of my life working hard, long hours, running around the city in a fucking van, sitting in a sweaty warehouse in Bushwick. I really dig what Darren is selling, and these guys seem like they're about something, And so that's like, limitations are advantages. Poverty is a kind of wealth, because also, like, another example, who today, with budgets, gets to spend 4 or 5 months working with an actor, workshopping the script and building it up, you know? Actually, Darren recently was doing Mother, and
Right.
he spent many weeks on a tape stage with a cast that was, Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem and Ed Harris, rehearsing and working and workshopping and building this thing up, kind of in the same way, reproducing that privilege which we had just because we were broke, we had literally nothing but time.
Sure.
That's super gratifying that the film is still out there.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. And the movie, like I mentioned, is so intense, right? Especially your performance. I mean, it gives you like anxiety watching this movie. Is just so crazy. Like, how did you come in and out of it between takes? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how did you come out of your performance? It was,
I think one of the great things about film work is that everybody elevates everybody else just by their presence, because you want to do good for your people, right? And I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but I was on a little league team with Matthew Libatique, right? One turns out to be one of the great living cinematographers. Darren fucking Aronofsky is like, who already I was like, I think he's good. I think he's. We had done films together at college that came out like decent, solid. Like people actually enjoyed watching them. Which is not always the case in college films. People like, that was good. Like I liked watching. And, and Eric Watson is this wonderful producer. And then, we wind up talking with Clint Mansell from Papa Lead Itself, who made what turns out to be an iconic score. So it's all the stuff where you're like, geez, Maddie's shit looks kind of good to me. I think it might be kind of good. Clint's shit sounds really good, I think. It turns out that these cats are actually that. And so for me, I was just in fake it till I make it mode. And that my whole experience of acting, Pi got me another 10 years of film acting. But before that, I had been that kid in high school that was doing plays and directing plays. And I wanted to be Sam Shepard. I wanted to be Samuel Beckett, I wanted to be in the intensity of the theater. And I directed plays, and I continued to do some theater in college. So Darren picked me up there and was like, oh, this is the one actor I know. All right, I'll use him. What am I going to do?
Sure.
He put me to work a little bit in college as well. But with Pi, we really had time to ramp up and kind of build this character. Like, I had enough time to kind of like build the muscles of the character a little bit.
Sure.
And try to figure out how to make it out of myself. So I'm almost talking about it as being a non-actor in a way, just because I have so much respect for acting now. Like, I love directing actors. I love being with actors. I'm doing a staged reading of the script I'm working on now with actors tomorrow. And I know I'm going to learn so much just from being with a bunch of semi-random actors, just hearing them bring it to. So I really respect the craft of acting. But this thing, I fucking just went crazy apeshit method.
Right.
Just, like living it, sleep in the clothes, wake up, smoke a cigarette, fucking start doing it. I had no other choice, getting, sitting by the edge of the fucking set, waiting to go in, go through a little door into a little, our little homemade supercomputer in a workshop in Bushwick that we had built, and just getting pumped up like a professional wrestler, just like.
That's sick. I love it.
We gotta go. That was my basic technique, which is kind of an exhausting approach to acting. But I don't hate that performance. Like, I saw it again. I thought it was going to be rough to watch, but I was like, no, this kid is going for it at least. And since the filmmaker is good, yeah, it was fun.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. You bring up your room in the film, and I like to call it a piece of art, because that room was. I'm a big computer nerd too. And, what was it like working on that set? Because, this was like before like big computers, you know what I mean? It's like the early days, and yet you have this like supercomputer room. And
we had these two producers that actually were like make proper commercial making producers in Tribeca, Scott Franklin and Scott Vogel. And one of them, I forget who wrangled it, maybe Darren wrangled this warehouse in Bushwick. And by then we had figured out that because our character was poor, but he's a computer scientist and he's an obsessed number guy, right? Always obsession, that he was going to have a homemade supercomputer. Right. And this is 1996, right? So, you're a little bit younger, Mike, but I was there for the dawn of the internet. And sure. This was the birth of the time where, personal computers started to be everywhere. So we found out that you could go behind a computer repair shop, You could go behind a lot of universities. There's a lot of dumpsters that were full of chips and cards.
Sure.
And so we just put on, well, at first we didn't put on gloves. And then we found out you have to put on gloves because those things are fucking prickly like sea urchins, right? Those cards will punch you through a little hole. And we just harvested computer parts. And then we bought, steel racks. And then we kind of figured out that if you had, those cards that lay flat, you could put in hot glue in these rows of cards and then wire them together. And I mean, I spent many days, if not weeks, with Matthew Marafi, the production designer, building, Euclid, as that computer was called, myself, working on it, which is, that's like another way where, poverty is a gift because, most actors are not going to have 3 weeks to be hot gluing computer boards. But by the time that set was done, I was like, that was pretty weird. I'm pretty fast. My room, like I live here, you know what I mean? I really kind of took ownership of it and felt like it was mine. And when the time came to smash it, and Darren's like, smash it. I was like, really? All right.
Good.
There was real emotion there in that set for me. Yeah.
That's sick, man. I love it. So, a lot of the film was shot like handheld, late nights around New York City. What was that like for you? Kind of, in that mode.
Darren, all now knows is just a really good director of actors, which I'm sure he's refined that over the years, but I also think it's kind of just a thing that people have. He just understood how to motivate and also, at the time, provoke and push and manipulate and support and like just carry an actor on the journey. And I was very much a willing participant in that, in that journey. And so, we were very close friends. So, and also, worst enemies in the course of that, it's like my best fiend because, he's pushing your buttons and going, before it's like, there was a horrible scene where, I have to go smash a cow brain in the sink of the apartment. And the cow brain had been, like sitting in a van in a Tupperware box for a few weeks.
Oh,
really, I mean, we took the top of it. The whole crew just like takes a big, everybody's got t-shirts over their mouths and shit. And I got to go in. And so, of course, Darren just comes up and whispers in my ear, some shit that you would tell just, if, your boy that you've known for a while, just like, and I just go, motherfucker, what did you say to me? Fuck this. I was like so angry, so mad. That like I practically called action myself. I'm just like, fuck it, let's just do it. Fuck this. And go and smack fucking cow brain everywhere.
Oh,
and then you see his face afterwards, and you're like, yeah, you got me, motherfucker. You got me.
That's it.
You tricked me. But that in those days, that was like exactly what I needed, exactly what I wanted, was that kind of full contact, filmmaking, and anything less I wouldn't have been able to perform,
Oh man. And you also have a writer credit on the film. How did that come about?
I think I have a story credit, and that was
story. Yeah.
When Darren came back from the American Film Institute and proposed, that he was going to make a film, and he'd come back with Maddie Libatique and Eric Watson, the wonderful producer of the film. And, these guys had learned a lot at AFI, and they kind of become, on the road. So to me, it was kind of like, are you ready to take a full commitment? Like, this is going to be all in. But I was a writer, and I always kind of have identified first as a writer. And, I was doing that magazine. And so building the character kind of from the ground up with Darren, piece by piece, and figuring out who's this guy going to be? What's the journey that he's going on? And then how do we express that as scenes? We would have an idea of a scene, and then Darren would go away and write it, and then he'd bring it back, and we'd like run it and workshop it and critique it and think about what was working and not. And then he would redline it and figure it out. So it was this really robust and privileged way, really, of working on a script, where you can just build it brick by brick, using the resources you have, and also having conversations with the cinematographer and with the producer, saying, okay, well, what are we going to be able to work with here? Like, we got a workshop. It's going to be small. Like, we're going to use this camera. It's going to be close up, and the whole camera grammar of it that they developed between Maddie and Darren was so strong and intentional.
Oh yeah, I love it, man. That's great. So I also want to talk about your other film, Traitors. What was it like for you, kind of stepping behind the camera as a director? That
Super.
must have been, a fun experience, or.
It was, yeah. I made a couple of shorts, and I started to get the sense like I like this. I seem to I can do this. I know where to put the camera. I know what to say to the actors, kind of a thing. But with Traders, I had just eureka moment, a light bulb moment where I was like, okay, this is the best. This is what I want to do. I'm
Sure.
ready to chase this high forever. You know, at whatever cost. I just love working with actors on the script that I wrote. And I lived in Morocco for a total of 7 years. And obviously didn't feel ready at first to make a film with Moroccan characters. And so I wrote another movie called Tangier, which actually Darren was an EP on, and which hasn't been made yet, and kind of went in development hell as so many movies do. But it was this really fun, dark, sexy thriller with Kristen Scott Thomas and Jeremy Irons and
Oh wow.
Hirsch, Tony Shalhoub were attached, and it was really great, really cool project. And it almost went, and then kind of did the development hell skid into the ditch a bit. And by then I had moved back. I moved to Tangier with my wife, who was a Moroccan artist, and who would come home to save a movie theater in the main square of the town that was about to go out of business and turn it into the Tangier Cinematheque, which is North Africa's first art house cinema.
Okay.
And in the course of doing that, I got to know kind of a bunch of working class guys in Tangier, electricians, the mechanic for my like fucked up old Land Rover that I had, a bunch of working guys, and I got to know like some neighborhoods in Tangier that tourists don't know about. And then the cinema that we had made had a cafe. And the cafe turned out to be the most important part of the whole cinema transformation, even though it's really a great art house cinema, because all the kids in the town who had nowhere to go before suddenly had a place to go. And they were the cool kids, the queer kids, the creative kids, the weird kids. And they were mixing it up in our cafe with the internationals, and with the Tangier expat crowd. And this whole kind of scene was forming there. And I was like, oh man, this is such a great world of these kids. Why aren't these kids in a punk band? Like this, in this society, like, so much to be frustrated about, and also so much that's glorious. Like they should have a fucking punk band. And it annoyed me. So I was like, well, yeah, they should. They have to. So we basically invented one. We made a short about Malika as the lead singer of an all-girl punk rock band called Traitors in Tangier. And we made that short with a grant from the Sharjah Art Foundation in the Emirates, founded by this wonderful princess of Sharjah, Sheikh Ahor, who's a great curator in the arts. And that short went to New York Film Festival, and then cut to, I think it's a feature, and actually talked to Darren about how to build out the feature. And he said, keep it simple. And I got another tiny little grant. And once again, it was $70,000 to make the film. It's exactly like Pi 10 years earlier.
Sure.
No fucking money. And then I had great cinematographers, Benoit Pavarelli and Nico Tavernese, two DPs. And, I started to discover amazing actors in Morocco. And it was such a joy to collaborate with those people. And the lead in that film, Shema Ben Asha, was her first feature. She just, is such a fucking good actor.
Right.
Such a straight, conservative, straight-laced good girl that when I told her she was going to play a risk-taking lead singer of an all-girl punk band, she's like, what is punk, Sean? What kind of music do you like? She's like, music? She's like, sometimes I listen to Celine Dion on Facebook. I was like, oh,
It's gonna be
what a
epic.
ride, Shema. We got to get you watching some Joan Jett videos. And then, that's a testimony to like the magic of acting, right? Is that this conservative girl becomes Malika, who's like just this balls out, fucking fearless, kind of like Jackie Brown like figure, who's going to pull all this tricky shit to get out of hot water with the evil drug dealers. Once she agrees to make a run to the mountains to load her car with hash and bring it back down, and then she has to help the other girl who's driving with her. And to do that, she's going to have to go up against these bad guys. So it was a really fun project, and we had great fortune with it. The film went to the Venice Film Festival. Had great distribution, had a wonderful festival run. It was, really positive, another really positive experience.
Fun, man.
Yeah.
So now with your directing, what do you enjoy most about directing, and what do you find the most challenging?
Oh, I mean, writing is hell. Development is hell. And as soon as you're starting to work with collaborators, that's when the joy comes back for me. Like, as soon as from the first time you're talking to somebody about camera, you're talking to somebody about art direction, or you're talking to somebody talking to an editor about how it's going to cut, or above all, talking to actors, which will always be my first love. And I just love them. I fucking love actors. They're so awesome and adorable and generous and creative. And I believe maybe it's the actors I choose, that they're like, that actors are potentially a great resource for the writer director, that they can do writing for you. And then you go, okay, well, here's the scene. I have you saying this, this, and this. And then like Shema Ben Asher will go, Sean, I don't say this. I wouldn't say this. And I'd say this. And I would bitch you. Boston, she's like, I refuse to say that. I was like, okay, so what would you say? And she's like, well, I would say this. I'm like, huh. Well, if we just change that a little bit, that's much better than what I had.
I love it.
So yeah. As a reformed actor myself, I'm very open to that dialogue with actors, and I find that very joyful.
That's great, man. That's wild. So, other than film, what would you say are some of your passions that keep you busy? What do you enjoy doing?
Well, I'm a dad. I have two awesome daughters, and one's an 8-year-old who I still get to read bedtime stories to sometime. Cool. And my 17-year-old just graduated from high school and is off in Europe right now. She's on a plane from Venice to back home in Tangier now.
Oh wow!
We speak, and so obviously they're being on that journey with them is super important to me. I have a little nonprofit that does a little bit of work with supporting nonprofits in Tangier, including the Tangier Cinematheque and the Darna Association, which works with women and kids at risk over there. So we do a little bit of fundraising and send small amounts of support their way through fundraising. And yeah, I do a bunch of different stuff. I'm in a community of filmmakers and artists, so I spend a fair amount of time looking at friends' work, hearing friends' work. But also, I work in documentary television now. So I produce and direct doc TV. Most recently, a show called Black Gold that was really important to me. That I kind of cooked up and brought to Darren's company. In fact, for the first time I've collabed with them in a while. And it's about Exxon and the big lie, the creation of the denial movement by big oil.
Right.
Just about how much they knew, how soon. In 1977, Exxon had 200 scientists in North Jersey, and they knew exactly what was going to happen with climate crisis, down to like within 100 parts per million of the carbon we have today.
Wow.
For a minute, they said, well, okay, obviously we have to like remake the world now. We got to change everything. And we have to have a seat at the table with government, and we're going to figure out, we'll regulate this in a way so we can make a turn towards renewables and not go out of business in the process, and it'll be okay. And then there's this dramatic Darth Vader moment where a new CEO comes on the scene and goes, oh no, fuck that. We're not negotiating anything with anybody. Exxon will just change the laws, and we'll change the lawmakers. We'll buy the Republican Party, and we'll rewrite the story, and we'll get scientists out there saying, well, who knows? Maybe it's true. Maybe it ain't. 50-50. Could be, could not. And they're like, all we need to do is buy 40 years of exploiting these resources, and and we're good. And they did it. And as a result, we're all going to fucking die. So it's called Black Gold. And that series it's a 3-episode doc series that we do with Protozoa and Time Studios, directed by Gabrielle Schonder, Zach Heinzerling. So that was a good one. Really proud of.
That's awesome, man. And I also saw, I got one more. So I saw that you got a few other films in the pipeline. What can you tell us about those? Is there something you want to talk about? Maybe too soon, maybe not. I don't know. I figured I would leave it up to you.
Oh, well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for asking. You're a sweetheart. My next feature is called Upland, adapted from a novel by the grand old man of Japanese letters, Kenzaburo Oe, who actually just died 3 months ago.
Oh no.
The Nobel Prize winner, and he was the leader of the anti-nuclear movement over there, and really kind of a revered figure. But his first novel, kind of a novella, slim novella, was called Nip the Bud, Shoot the Kids. And he allowed me to move the action from 1945 Japan to 2037 West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
It's about a bunch of kids in juvenile detention in the near future, right? Kind of bleeding edge of now, 2037, who get evacuated from juvie ahead of a big climate storm into the raggedy ass Appalachians where, oh shit, they run into a right-wing militia run by
Oh, it's wild.
militia. And I think I'm allowed to say we're in talks now.
Sure.
Talks, fingers crossed. And we have the great actor Paul Sparks attached, and a great young native actor called Forrest Goodluck. And it's kind of a YA thriller with just a lot on its mind about America and how fucked up we are, and also where, like, what possibilities there are, especially with kids, for kind of some sort of road forward in a very different way. So it's fun and cool. And so I'm all into that now. Doing a table reading for that tomorrow. I've got some terrific Canadian producers, Lisa and Wolofsky and Pierre Evan in Montreal, who are supporting and making that happen. So we hope to be shooting that. We're going to be shooting that this year.
Wow, man. I'm in for that. Count me in. That sounds wonderful. So cool. All right, listen, bro, I really appreciate you taking out some time to do this. This means a lot.
Oh, appreciate
you, Mike. And it's been a real pleasure. So
thank you, sir. Excellent to talk to you. Really fun. I can't wait to watch some of your other interviews. You're a good interviewer. I'd like to see what else you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, Mike.
All right.